Welcome to the 700 Club. President Trump made history yesterday. He's now the first U.S. president to be impeached twice. And this time around, 10 Republicans in the House voted for his impeachment.
The Senate trial will take place after President Trump is out of office. So why are Democrats demanding impeachment when the president has just days remaining in office? CBN Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson explains.
For lawmakers trying to impeach Trump days before he leaves the White House, the goal is not just to remove him from office, but to stop him from ever becoming president again.
He must go. He is a clear and present danger to the nation that we all love.
The single article of impeachment charges President Trump with engaging in high crimes and misdemeanors by inciting violence against the government of the United States.
They were domestic terrorists, and justice must prevail. But they did not appear out of a vacuum. They were sent here by the president with words such as a cry to fight like hell.
The vote took place with National Guard troops protecting the Capitol and the House chamber itself. 10 Republicans joined every House Democrat voting in favor of impeachment, while the majority of House Republicans argued this.
A vote to impeach would further divide this nation. A vote to impeach will further fan the flames of partisan division.
House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy believes the president should be censured for his role in the Capitol attack, not impeached.
The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters. He should have immediately denounced the mob when he saw what was unfolding.
Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace says both sides share in the blame for the unrest around the country.
Republicans and Democrats need to acknowledge this is not the first day of violence we've seen. We've seen violence across our country for the last 9 months. And we need to recognize, number one, that our words have consequences, that there is violence on both sides of the aisle. We've contributed to it. We need to take responsibility for our words and our actions. We need to acknowledge there is a problem, take responsibility for it, and stop being part of the problem and start being part of the solution.
Following the historic vote on impeachment, Trump called for no violence, vandalism, or lawbreaking as he prepares to leave office.
Now I am asking everyone who has ever believed in our agenda to be thinking of ways to ease tensions, calm tempers, and help to promote peace in our country.
And President-elect Joe Biden released a statement saying he hopes that Senate leadership will find a way to deal with their constitutional responsibilities on impeachment while also working on the other urgent business. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell will not reconvene the Senate until January 19th, ensuring a Senate impeachment trial would not begin until the first weeks of Biden's presidency. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Well, CBN's political analyst David Brody joins us now. David, tell us about Mitch McConnell. He's put out a quote, that he's not made a final decision on how I will vote. So we're looking at an impeachment trial probably starting this month. But what do you make of his quote?
Well, I think it's code for the dam is loose. In other words, the dam is broken because it appears that if Mitch McConnell is not committing one way or the other at this point, I think you can read into that that he may indeed himself vote to convict. And if that's the case, like I say, the dam has then been broken loose because that gives cover for a lot of other Republicans in the Senate to do the same. So I think it's going to be iffy and dicey, but close, whether or not there can be 17 Republican senators to convict this president. But Gordon, it kind of gets to a larger issue. And you can bring some constitutional law professors on to talk about it. I'm not one. I don't even play one on television. But I can tell you this, that it may not even get to a Senate trial. I mean, there's a constitutionality issue, whether or not you can convict a president after he leaves office. He's not a sitting officer. I talked to Alan Dershowitz the other day, a liberal Harvard professor. You know him. Everybody knows him in the country. He told me, no, you can't do it. It's unconstitutional. and there's others that say it is. And so there's going to be debate about the impeachment clause of the Constitution. And so I think before it even gets to a Senate trial, I think we're going to the U.S. Supreme Court about this sometime either in January or February.
Well, we're into uncharted territory, and the uncharted territory is the 14th Amendment. How is the 14th Amendment enforced against a sitting president? It's unprecedented to think that a sitting president would incite an insurrection. That is brand new territory for us, and that's the claim here. So how are they going to deal with that as an issue? And I think that's the end game here, is to try to make sure under the 14th Amendment, President Trump can never hold a federal office again. I think that's what they're trying to do.
Well, I think you're right, Gordon. I think it comes back to the Brandenburg test. Back in the late 1950s, the Supreme Court ruled about First Amendment free speech, and that unless you are specifically directing a rebellion or a rebellion is likely to come out of your speech, then you can pretty much say whatever you want. That's not me saying that. That's Alan Dershowitz and many other professors who I was talking to. So, I think the Brandenburg test from 1957 is going to come up. I don't think there's any question about it. And then you go to some of the facts on the ground. This idea that the president incited a rebellion, there is a very solid case to make under the Brandenburg test that it didn't come close to that. For example, you read in the media reports, and, Gordon, you always talk about, and it's true, right? We're trying to provide the truth here at CBN News. Well, here's the truth. The media specifically says Donald Trump called for folks to come to Washington and march. He never did that. Never did that. He said there's going to be a march and a rally in Washington, D.C. It's going to be wild, is what he said. The march was already planned. It was for Women for America First. So this was not a Trump campaign event. He didn't call for it on the National Mall or the White House ellipse, number one. Number two, the riot at the Capitol had already started taking place. Wait for it, Gordon. Before Donald Trump even started finishing his remarks, about 20, 25 minutes before he finished, they were already storming the Capitol, and Donald Trump was still speaking. Finally, obviously, as we've talked about, he said peacefully and patriotically march to the Capitol. So this idea, and once again, let me be clear, and we always have to do the disclaimer. What happened at the storming of the Capitol was horrible and terrible, and no one wanted to see that. But the question comes from a constitutional standpoint, whether or not this will hold up in a court of law as it relates to the trial, the Senate trial, because the impeachment's a done deal at this point.
Well, let's look at the political ramifications, and I think one of the things is, McConnell sending a clear message to other Republicans that he's undecided, so that he's already moving away from the president. What about cancel culture here? And if the president is successfully impeached and the 14th Amendment comes into play, all of those things, is that now cover for big tech to continue to censor conservative voices?
I think 100%, Gordon. I think that's the real threat here. Everybody talks about Trump and impeachment and politics and what does it mean for the future of the Republican Party? All very important questions. But there is a much more underlying issue here, which is exactly what you said. Big tech censorship. That's where this is going. I can tell you, I had Samuel Rodriguez reach out to me over the weekend. He's one of the president's advisors, faith advisors. We know him. We've had him on the 700 Club before. And he said, David, this is out of control. He called me on a Saturday night over the weekend. He said what they're doing to his organization and some of the folks around him in the Hispanic community because they support Trump, whether it be deplatforming or losing followers or warning labels, all of it. This is where we're going. And it's not just about politics. It's about folks that are faithful. And not only that, but, we have to understand here, if you are a Trump supporter, you will be considered an enabler of all of this, according to big tech. And that's the real danger. I can tell you this. I spoke to Jason Miller, a senior advisor to the, no longer, I guess, Trump campaign. But he talked to me about what happened to him. He was supposed to do a live shot at a place called Live Shot Studios in Washington, D.C. He showed up. They said, sorry, you can't come in. And he said, why can't I come in? He said, well, they said, you're on the list. He said, what do you mean I'm on the list? He said, well, apparently there's a COVID thing, and they've tried to make it a health situation, but there was no indication. Jason Miller hadn't had COVID, hadn't been around anybody with COVID. I mean, there was nothing about from a health perspective. He was on a, quote, list, and that's the concern. I can tell you this, once again, back to Alan Dershowitz, because I had a whole hour conversation with him. He said, this isn't just McCarthyism coming. This is way far and above McCarthyism, what's about to unfold here in America.
Well, they're going to go after people's jobs, and they're going to go after people's ability to participate in the public square. So here, is this going to handicap Biden? Does he recognize this, that, you know, just as same way Trump was handicapped by the Russian collusion, is the entire government going to be focused on a new Trump collusion claim and yet another attempt to impeach? And is that going to throw everything into turmoil and absolutely derail his administration before it even begins?
Well, I think it's going to hurt him a lot. The question then becomes, what parliamentary tricks, what do they have up their sleeve? The Democrats, they'll control the Senate. They can do a lot with 50 votes, and the retribution is coming, Gordon. The retribution is coming. So as much as Joe Biden's agenda may suffer a little bit, the truth of the matter is all bets are off on judges. The filibuster rule is gone. They might change the filibuster rule. Democrats might on legislative priorities. So if they go ahead through with some of this stuff, then it really doesn't matter what you, me, and the guy down the street thinks. The Democrats have control and they can do what they want. You're going to have to look to people like Joe Manchin and some other centrist Democrats to figure it all out going forward.
All right. Well, thank you, David. Thank you for your analysis. And I called for it yesterday. I'll call for it again today. Please be in prayer for our nation. This is absolutely catastrophic. Our democracy is at stake. Our two-party system is at stake. Our freedom to express our opinion is at stake. There are a lot of ramifications from what happened and the horrible things that happened on January 6th, but it seems to be a cascading event.